Welcome to the Titans of Industry show. I have a fantastic show for everyone today. Bill Holter is back with us. Mindset.com is the website. Great writer. Obviously a phenomenal commentator. Very popular on YouTube. Bill, how you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I am really intrigued to see what you have to say about everything that's going on, because this is just your turf. What are your conclusions regarding the severity, lethality, the truthfulness behind the reporting about COVID-19 and its origins? What do you think in general about it, these comparisons to the flu, and then from the other side, comparisons to doomsday?
I'd rather not even get into the mix of that, but I will say that the credit bubble was already imploding before the coronavirus. And I guess I'll say that the coronavirus coming along when it did was fortuitous, because now they can blame everything on the coronavirus.
Like a scapegoat.
Yeah. But my point being, it was already, we already saw the repo market broke on September 16th of last year. Interest rates jumped to 10% overnight, and the Fed was having to pump billions of dollars in every single night just to keep that market under control. And if you go back to the fourth quarter, you go back to January, February, before the virus was actually was affecting life. You could see clearly in trade numbers, and when I'm saying trade numbers, because those are numbers that can't be made up, because there's two sides to every trade. So when trade numbers are released, they have to add up to the sum total of what everybody says they're trading. And the trade was definitely turning down. You could see it in freight rates. You could see it in the Baltic Dry Index rates. You could see that commerce was definitely starting to slow before the COVID came along and countries just started shutting down. So what I'm telling you is this would have happened
regardless. I get it. The fundamentals were there. This was like a catalyst that pushed it to the extreme. I want to ask you about this extreme. One of the trends that I'm seeing all over YouTube, if you're seeing it as well, are these blurring lines between conspiratorial and mainstream. Like people that I would never believe before are questioning the validity of government. Talking about what we call conspiratorial or alternative media, talking about it in the open, and YouTube has been censoring, taking down, anything that's opposed to WHO and everything like that, really becoming an enforcer of, the official stories, etc. Are you seeing this as well, this blurring lines between mainstream and conspiratorial? It looks like the mainstream people, very reputable, legit channels, are bringing on guests that they wouldn't have thought of before. You know what I mean? What do you think about all of this awakening, and do you see it?
Well, I think the average person is beginning to wake up. People have been shut down and their lives have been put on hold for 6 weeks, and you're starting to see anger. You're starting to see the rise, even further rise of populism and the decline of globalism.
Yeah. Some of these videos that have been taken down, they had like 5-10 million views. People that are challenging Fauci, challenging the modelers, etc. I have really enjoyed seeing this back and forth between YouTube and the channels.
I have a problem with that, Lior. There was an article yesterday about big technology censoring everything. I mean, What gives them the right to censor speech? It makes no sense to me whether they're right or whether they're wrong, and whether the other side is right or wrong doesn't matter. What needs to happen is there needs to be a full discussion, open ideas, as opposed to trying to censor and shut down anything that they don't agree with. And I mean, I can tell you where I land. I mean, I land on the other side. But what they're doing, I think, is in the longer run going to be to their detriment. Because I think people understand that, you know, if something is being shut down, then there must be something to it.
Sure, that's very true, and that's why I was asking that, because I am of the same opinion that we should not be afraid of talking about these issues and letting people understand and make their own decisions whether or not this is kooky or real. When a crisis like this comes along and the panic ensues, as it did in March, you obviously were watching the markets with circuit breaker after circuit. It was insane. Do you have a different? Okay, well then the question is even better. What is the role of government and of central banks, if there is even a role when in such a scenario comes along, when credit freezes for the entire global economy, when you have a situation that is pretty unprecedented? Let me know what you think should happen if this comes along again.
What should happen or what will happen? I mean, what will happen is more of what we've seen. The central banks, I mean, even the Fed now is talking. They're buying ETFs. Central banks are in all and every market on the planet to try to mold the perception, if you will, via pricing. You know, they force pricing. What should happen is they should allow the whole thing to come down. If you're bankrupt, you're bankrupt. There should not be, in my opinion, there should not be bailouts. You know, if capitalism, they should allow capitalism to work. And what they've done is they've stunted capitalism, and they've changed it basically to socialism for the rich. And I mean, we saw it. We really have seen it since the day after the crash in 1987. With the plunge protection team was created back in 1988 by Ronald Reagan, the President's Working Group on Financial Markets. We saw it after 9/11. We saw it in 2008 and 9. We've seen it since then with central banks pushing interest rates negative. And we're seeing it all over the place here with I mean, we're spending trillions in a very contracted period of time. So my opinion is they should just there will be, if this were to happen, there would be massive, massive pain, but there's going to be massive pain either way, because what all these central banks are doing by trying to prop things up and price markets is the ultimate destruction of fiat currencies.
Understood. The reason I'm asking that question is because unlike other scenarios, other crises, other periods of pure greed, etc., this hit everyone and not just, let's say, the banking sector or derivatives, etc. This is not propagated by somebody doing a bad deed. This happened to everyone, like barbers, restaurants, hotels, etc. Was this not a good time to say, hey, we've been paying taxes for a century here. We need now tax money to go and help the average person? My question basically is, was this not the only situation in which government should have said, hey, we have your money, you've been paying us all these years, Boeing, Apple, etc., all these corporations, without naming names, this is the time for us to come through for you, etc., and the average person as well, like every person that got a helicopter money check, etc. Is this just a bad way of doing it, or do you feel like because this is not funded from taxes but from money out of exactly just
It's funded from the creation of money overnight. Here, let me ask you a question and turn it around. If they can create money out of thin air and everything's going to be fine, then why does anybody have to pay taxes?
No, 100%. That question is legitimate, and that's why I'm asking, not whether or not we shall pay a price for this. Obviously, there is a price for increasing money supply in such a way. There are many unintended consequences. There are many things that nobody knows. This is a giant experiment.
But very few see that. The average person does not see that. The average person sees that they got a check for $600 or $1,200 or whatever it happens to be. They're looking at today and not even thinking about tomorrow. And tomorrow,
I agree with you. What do you think can happen?
well, the people who have worked and saved their entire life in XYZ currency, whether it be the dollar, the euro, the yen, the pound, what have you, the people who have worked and saved are going to end up with nothing saved in real purchasing power for their lifetime's work. That's where this goes. And it goes there worldwide. This is not just a U.S. thing or just a Europe thing. This is worldwide.
Yeah. Okay, I wonder if you think gold's price is justified at current levels, or is it worth much more if fiat currencies are going to be worth much less? Is it a buying opportunity in your opinion? Is silver a buying opportunity? What does Bill think about this?
Well, the time to buy silver, the time to buy gold is whenever you have more fiat currency than you want to leave in a bank. Because if you leave it in a bank or you leave it in that fiat currency, you're going to end up losing your purchasing power. I did the math, I think it was 2 summers ago, when the debt was $21 trillion. If you take the gold that the United States says we have, if you take that gold and divide it by 21 trillion in order to pay the debt off, the number's $87,000. And I took all kinds of grief and got trolled because, I'm absolutely crazy. Gold at $87,000 is not even possible. Well, here we are, at 23 trillion. Now probably when everything's said and done with all the trillions that they've just thrown around, we're probably at 25. So the number's over $100,000. If we actually have the gold that we say we do, that would have to be priced at over $100,000 an ounce to pay back our debt. So is $1,700 gold, and that's the spot price. I mean, in order to get coin, you're looking at another $150, $200 for Eagles or pre-33s, U.S. coins. Is $1,700, $1,900? Is that too high? I think it's like picking up $100 bills on the street for pennies. I think gold and silver are extremely, extremely cheap, and I've said for 5 or 6, 7 years now that when all is said and done, you will see COMEX and you will see LBMA default. There will be a failure to deliver.
Yeah. And gold is up about 70% since the bottom in December 2015, so it's really doing nicely. And if gold was a stock, it would be among the top 20 performers in the S&P 500 this year. It's doing very well. Let me ask you something. What are you've been through quite a few scenarios in your life where bear markets, crisis, etc. What are your main key takeaways from this particular crisis? What have you learned? What are you going to change about your life? What have you already changed? I mean, what's some of the things that you will do differently from now on with your finances, with everything else?
Well, I won't do anything differently with my finances. I mean, I've saved in precious metals for years. I can tell you one thing for sure, and we've recently relocated. I think anybody who is not in a rural living condition, I think anybody in cities is going to be devoured. I think this will all end in social unrest, and when there's social unrest, you don't want to be around the social unrest. It's better to be out on a farm or a ranch where it's just you, your family, and people that you know and trust. Because in an urban area, you have no idea who's friend, who's foe. When food gets tight, and I've talked about this, I've talked about the distribution system breaking because of credit. And yes, we're starting to see distribution break down worldwide because of COVID. But this would have happened and is going to happen even worse because the credit bubble has busted. And in order to get a product from start to finish, from point A to point B, and point B being the consumer, there are many uses of credit. And as credit breaks down, more and more goods are going to become more and more scarce. So as goods become scarce, obviously people's daily life or standard of living is going to change and contract. And you're going to see a lot of pissed off people, and I fully expect this is going to end in unrest, probably in many, many parts of the world. And as I said, you don't want to be there, you don't want to be involved in it.
That's very interesting, Bill. I want to ask you, Leslie, about something that's very topical and very controversial. The question of vaccines. Will you agree to a vaccine at some point if they tell you can't, if they give you some draconian measures like you cannot travel outside the country without a vaccine, or you cannot get your driver license, whatever it is. Which one? So never. You just do not trust in vaccines.
I mean, you don't know what's in the vaccine. No. I mean, they give kids 60 vaccines now by the time they're, 5 or 6 years old. And when we were kids in America, and when we were kids, what did we get? We got 4 vaccines or something like that. And I didn't see people dying all over the place in the 60s.
Definitely not 60. Yes, for sure. Okay, the reason I'm asking is this must be the most controversial topic everywhere. People are just talking about vaccine, the Bill Gates behind them, etc. Do you think that there's some dark, sinister agenda behind this, or they're just not safe as an industry?
There's obviously all kinds of potential reasons why they would want everybody to take a vaccine. Is it so that you don't get the flu? I don't think so. I think it has to do with money. It has to do with power. It has to do with potentially what these vaccines, what they can actually do to people. I mean, do they alter the way you think? Does it alter the way does it alter your lifestyle? And I mean, I don't have the answer to these, but as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I would rather eat organically grown food rather than GMO food. I mean, I would rather eat stuff from Mother Nature and live with Mother Nature rather than, have some man-made stuff shot into my body.
Well, such a great answer. I appreciate that. That's a great answer. I want to ask you, lastly, we see hatred towards China right now. Justified or overhyped?
I don't really have an answer for that yet, but I suspect it's going to become I suspect before it's done, the anger level will rise.
Does that mean a lot of companies are going to move out of China? Do you see China getting weaker from this, stronger in the power for supremacy between the United States and China? Is this a game changer?
I don't think it's a game changer. I believe that we've been, if you want to call it, in a financial war for years, and the war is to try to protect the dollar, to try to continue with the dollar being supreme. And you've got many nations across the globe understanding that the dollar as the reserve currency is not in their best interest. So I guess how I'm answering this is, it's not just China. I mean, you're pitting it U.S. versus China, and I don't think it's just U.S. versus China. I think it's U.S. and a very small amount of allies versus the rest of the world. And I do believe the whole credit system is going to come down, and we probably will go through two separate resets. The first one will be man-made; it won't work, and the second one will be done by Mother Nature, and that one will work. And resetting, when we go through the second reset, it's going to affect everything. It's going to affect not just finance. It's going to affect not just currency values, the price of gold and silver. It's going to affect everything. It's going to affect where products are made. It's going to affect where products are shipped to. It's going to become a more level playing field worldwide, in my opinion.
Bill, these are very interesting topics, and I'm sure you write a lot about them in mindset.com. What can people check out there? Is that a free service, a paid service? What's going on with the way that you structure your business?
JS Mindset it's a two-tier website. We have a free side where we basically post articles and interviews of other people. We make comments to them. On the paid side, I write some, Jay Johnson writes some, and we do a weekly, at least weekly 1 hour call. There was a week, I think 3 or 4 weeks back, where we actually did, for the week, we did we did our 1 hour weekly call, and then we did 3 other interim calls from the week because it was such a crazy week. So in essence, you're looking at least 50, if you want to call them 1 hour seminars, with myself, my partner Jim Sinclair, and then 2 others, Denny and Dave, are on the call. And we pretty much talk about anything and everything. We take questions from subscribers and talk about those. We take our own questions, and so from week to week the topics vary, but it's we try to cover almost everything.
Bill, that's beautiful. Thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show, and definitely let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Lior.